Welcome everyone to another Maine SBDC webinar. My name is Kelsey Reardon and I am with the state office hosted by USM. And we have another state office USM business advisor, Chris Cole, with us today, who is going to be going over preparing a booth for fairs and festivals and farmers market. So it's getting to be that season. We are located in Portland in our office. And so the Portland Farmers Market started today. It sounds like some people might not be able to hear me, but maybe everyone else can. So it might be a computer issue, but I'm going to keep going. So if you are someone who has already started setting up at markets before, this should be a good continuation and might give you some new ideas to think through. If you've never done it before, welcome. Setting up a booth is a very exciting part of a small business or a side hustle, as some of you might be at this point. If you are not familiar with the Maine SBDC, we are the Small Business Development Centers, and we are a federally funded program. So every state has centers, and then each state has a series of centers around the state and business advisors that can help with either location-specific information or content or business-specific information. And all of it is of no cost to you. It's federally funded. So if you're not already set up with a free business advisor, I will include all of our contact information to sign up for that in my follow-up email. I'll also include the slides from today's presentation and a link to the recording. So feel free to take notes. Feel free to just sit back and enjoy a cup of coffee and listen to Chris. And then, like I said, this afternoon, I'll send out all of that follow-up information so you can circle back to anything. Please use the chat feature to submit any questions you have along the way, and feel free to introduce yourself. Maybe let us know what would be on your booth or what part of the state you're located in. It'd be great to know if you are someone who's setting up at fairs, like a couple of county fairs, or maybe an every weekend farmers market booth. We'd love to hear what it is you're planning. So feel free to plug that in the chat. I think I hit on everything, but we will keep going. We're all set. People are getting their sounds on. They're getting into the room. We've got a good crowd. So I think we're ready to get started. So I'll pass it over to Chris.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelsey, for that introduction. And of course, today's fairs, festivals, and farmers markets. I love this topic because, all right, I'm not able to move my screen. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. So who I am, like Kelsey said, I'm Chris Cole. I'm a business advisor. I've been with the Maine SBDC for almost 2 years now. Before that, I was a business owner. So a few of my different businesses. My very first business was gluten-free sauces. This was back when nobody knew what gluten was or why people didn't eat it. I also was a personal chef. I've done property development. I owned a restaurant for 13 years. And when I was doing my sauce business, I did participate in farmers markets, fairs, and festivals, and even with my restaurant. I still was doing participation in some of these shows to sell my granola and my other products. Also, little background, I grew up in the show business. My dad produced trade shows throughout New England, New York, down in Georgia and South Carolina, and also concerts. So this is a topic that's kind of in my blood. All right, Kelsey's told you a little bit about the SBDC and what we do. Obviously, it's free and it's confidential, our advising. And we work with startups, business planning, financing, the financial analysis and projections. Certainly, that's something that a lot of people need help with when you're going to the bank to get a loan. marketing and sales, HR, of course. And if you're getting ready to purchase a business or sell a business, we'll help you with those items as well. Here's just a little map of our locations throughout the state. I think one of the positive things that came out of COVID was this whole Zoom thing and being able to do things virtually. So the nice thing is that I can co-advise with an advisor that might have a different specialty than mine. And I can also talk to people throughout the state of Maine. So, you know, you can get connected with an advisor that has experience in the industry that you work in, or a little more knowledge about that, which is great. So we all have specialties along with being business advisors. All right, getting ready for farmers markets. So I personally loved participating in any kind of outdoor event, whether it's farmers markets, fairs, festivals. It's a great way to meet your customers and make that personal connection. And, you know, now after 2 years of people not being able to go to many of these events, I think there's a lot of pent up demand. And for some of you folks who started a business during the pandemic, you may have customers through your e-commerce or your website platforms that you've never even met. So this is a great way to actually get out there and meet people and gain new customers. But first you want to make sure that, you know, you're in the right venue, that you've taken time to design your booth. If you're doing wholesaling, that you're prepared to do that. So this is just a list of the things that we're going to go through today in this webinar. First of all, events can be, you know, really fun-filled and with lots of people, but it doesn't mean that that's going to translate to sales or customers for you. Balloon Festival, I love that, you know, the one they have up in Auburn is really colorful. There's a lot of people that attend, but I don't think they're necessarily there to buy products. Same with a music festival, unless you have a food truck or you're selling like t-shirts or, you know, hats or something like that. Most people aren't there to buy a gift product to bring home. So when you choose an event, you're looking at, first of all, is this something new or is it existing? And if it's new event, you want to know how much the producer of the event has put into doing some marketing here. What is their budget? Who are they advertising with? How many customers are going to be coming to this event? And kind of what kind of customers you're going to have. So also, if it's an existing event with historical numbers, that's great. You can get those numbers. You can know what their attendance was like. You can also get a list of vendors and exhibitors. And certainly feel free to call vendors that have similar products to yours and ask some questions. I mean, most business owners are pretty friendly and willing to help out as long as you're not their direct competitor. And certainly if they've been in a show for many years, you can tell there's a reason that they keep coming back. And make sure that your products align with the audience that's going to be there. So Wilton Blueberry Festival, I put there as an example because one of the products that we made was a wild blueberry vinaigrette. And we'd sell so much product at that festival. We basically would bring that in we had a wild strawberry dressing. And those two products did well, but the blueberry, because it was a blueberry festival. But if you make like lobster shaped wooden puzzles, you probably want to be at the Rockland Lobster Festival. People go for themed type of things. And then make sure wherever this festival is, that you're able to restock your product easily, or that you can be able to store your product so that you don't have to go a huge distance, you know, to get restocked. And then what additional services is the venue going to provide? Usually these are paid for services like electricities, tables and chairs. Booth coverage. Booth coverage means that somebody within the show staff will actually come and cover your booth for you so you can go and get lunch or run an errand or something like that. That's usually not offered in like a farmer's market, but some of the larger shows, they do offer that, and all of these come with a cost. So before you get to a show, once you've decided I'm gonna do this show, you want to make sure that your customers know that you're going to be at this show. All right. So draw them in, have them bring family members with them. There are a lot of things that you can do that don't cost any money. You've already paid for your website, so use it. Put the details of the upcoming event. You even have a calendar of where you're going to be. And then if you happen to know where your location is, excuse me, at that event, make sure you put it on there so people can find you. Use your social media, get people excited about it. Link the event, excuse me, to your website as well and your social media posts. And then during the event, make sure you do updates. So, again, you can say, I'm at the Cumberland Fair and there's so many people here. It's lots of fun, just things that get people interested in what's going on and draw them in. And then, email your existing customers, maybe even offer them a show special if they come to the show and they say that they saw this email or a printed, code or something like that, that they can get a discount. But, something to get people to come to your show. And then the things that you can do that are paid, if there's a show guide, usually they offer levels of advertising. You can do something as simple as having your company name bolded with a little description under it. Certainly it's going to be a lot less money to like a business card size ad. Some of them will even offer a half-page ad. And then the event website, make sure that you are able to link back to your website. Lots of times they offer that for free or not a very high price because, again, they want people to come to the event and say, oh, there's all these vendors here and have interest. And then if there's a local paper that's associated with the show, that the show's advertising in, and sometimes there's like a whole spread, and they make sure you get into that if that's part of your budget. This helps to create interest in your product. On the other end, as I said, one of my businesses was being a restaurant owner. I owned a restaurant in North Yarmouth, and the Yarmouth Clam Festival was a huge event. Every year I would advertise. I would spend a lot of money on this ad. A lot to me then was $250 for a half-page full-colored ad in the Clam Festival guide that they would put into the notes, the shopping notes, local paper. But people kept that, and we were always busy during the Clam Festival week. So it was, in my opinion, it was money well spent. Then if there are media sponsors like a radio station or a television station, usually they'll offer a package to exhibitors, vendors at an event at a reduced rate. And in particular, radio stations, like if they have the Blake Show, let's say, and if you can get a package that includes being able to speak on air about your product, a little interview spot, that's also probably well worth it. Again, all depends on your budget. All right, and speaking of budget, when you decide to do a show, farmers markets tend to be less expensive and they're wonderful. I mean, sometimes you get spaces for $50, to be in a farmer's market. But if you're talking about like the Freiburg Fair or something larger, that's a considerable amount of money to invest in an event that's a week long. And you have to consider how much your space is costing if you're putting money into your pre-marketing, the booth build out, of course, travel and lodging, that all goes into like how much you're going to have to spend. So how much product do you need to sell just to break even on being at that event? And then, what's the value in getting your product in front of consumers? So an event is kind of twofold. It's a way to generate income, but it's also a way to market your product. So if you can say, well, this is part of my marketing budget, so it's okay if we just break even, and pay for our costs, but maybe we've generated a lot more customers being in this event. And then adversely, the opportunity cost, because there's time to prepare and time to take down. And again, a week-long event or even the 3 or 4 day weekend event, what could you be doing instead of that show that may help your business farther down the line? So maybe doing an event isn't particularly going to help your business. Speaking of events, Freiburg Fair. I love this fair. They have so many people that come. I don't know their specific attendance numbers for that week, but it has to be in the hundreds of thousands. And they have such a variety of products. Many people come to this, fair year after year to sell their products. And I see them because I've been going to that fair for like 20 plus years myself, just as a customer. And I see everything from like Lee's family trailer sales, which sad that they sold it, but people selling campers and even vehicles, to people selling handmade furniture and foods and different crafts, along with all the other things that you expect at an agricultural fair. So you can tell that there's a reason that people continue to do this. And, it's fun. It's a way to get in front of audiences. It's something that if it was in my budget when I was doing my business, I probably would have done it, but it wasn't. All right. So designing your booth before you go to that fair, festival, or farmer's market, you want to make sure that your booth is easy to set up, easy to transport. It's something that customers are going to feel welcomed coming in. And it really displays your product tastefully and not cluttered. My sauce business, we had a friend that built out and was really portable, and it was pretty ingenious, I thought. It was all collapsible, the shelving, and we could just pile it in the back of our truck, and then we'd go to a show and set it up, and it looked really nice, displayed our product well. And then we also had my business partner's father built us these step tiers to put our sauces and gift baskets on. And behind the tiers, actually, it was hollow, so we could store our product, which kept our booth neat. You want to think about that, and you actually want to practice setting up your display before you get to an event, and also where you're going to put everything, so you know that ahead of time. And then little extra things like having flooring. We had an indoor-outdoor carpet, which was nice and comfortable and kind of distinguished us just from having the dirt ground. It also will keep, excuse me, especially if you're in a dry, dusty area, it will keep that dust down off of your product. Another trick of the trade, director's chairs. So usually your booth, you want to have all this display, but if you're sitting in a chair behind your booth, people aren't going to see you. Director's chairs, get you nice and high, and then you're still engaged with your audience, and people don't walk past your booth and think nobody's there. Make sure that you have a table to write your orders on and also process the credit cards, etc. Signage and sign placement. This is really important. This gentleman here, it says, Pine Products inside his booth. Hopefully on the outside, I don't see a picture of the outside of it, but hopefully there's a sign that says what his company name is. But you don't want to have your sign in front of a table, and if you get really busy, it's getting blocked by customers. So you want to have it up, so people walking past, if your booth is busy, they can see what it is, who you are and what it is. Also, make sure that you wear things with your logo on it too. Or if you don't have logo size shirts, make sure that everybody that's working has the same color or your company colors. We used to have aprons that said our company name on them, and they were really cute and so it was just advertising us, even when we were walking around the show and, if one of us was taking a break, people knew that we were associated with that. All right, packing lists. So these are all the items, and there's probably even more that you need. I love totes. I used to put everything in totes. It keeps them dry and contained. But in particular, I would have a few different totes. I've kind of categorized this in two sections of necessity. You have your marketing and office supplies. So, make sure you got your business cards ready. If you have recipe cards and brochures, wholesale price lists, payment processing, if you're doing Square, or you need an iPad to process payment, make sure that you have that with you. Licenses and sales certificates. People from the state do stop by at these events, and they want to make sure that you are licensed to do what you're doing, and that you have a seller's certificate to collect Maine state sales tax if that applies to the product that you're selling. So make sure you have those with you. And if you are a home licensed kitchen, like if your home kitchen is licensed to do like baking or sauces, things like that, make sure that you have the mobile vendor's license as well. You need to have that to be able to participate even in farmers markets. But that way you can sell your products yourself directly. And I think it's only about $20. And then, of course, people still pay with cash. So have a cash draw. Make sure that you have cash to start, your setup with lots of change. And then just things like receipt books, Sharpies are great to have. All of these things. One thing in particular, the card stock. If you need to make a quick sign, it's really good. So you got your Sharpies and your card stock, you're great with that. And then, of course, you need your chargers, lights, signs. If you're sampling product, make sure that you have those items with you to be able to sample your product. And then extension cords, power strip, of course, things you wouldn't think of, a first aid kit with ibuprofen or aspirin or whatever it is you take if you get a headache. A utility knife, zip ties, those all come in handy. I always like to have a little trash can and trash bags with me, but keep them behind the booth because you don't want to start collecting everybody's trash at a festival. And then things to keep your display clean. So again, if it's dusty, you want something to dust off with or be able to wipe down. A change of clothes is always a good idea. Be prepared for the weather. We know in Maine, it can change in about 5 minutes. So, have a jacket, rain gear, hat, sunscreen, and, make sure you have your breath mints with you or gum or something, because that bloomin' onion tastes really good, but your customers don't want to smell that. And then a big thing here is I always had a cooler with a lot of water in it and some snacks. Because you can't always break away if you get busy, which is what you want to do. You want to be prepared to be able to, get the water when you need it. And then we used to pack fans with us for those real hot August days. And just on a personal level, it keeps you comfortable. So those are just some of the items. You're welcome to print this out or make your own based on this list that I gave you here. All right. So setup and location. If possible, if you can pick your space, which is always great, try to make sure that you're near similar products, but you don't want to be next to your direct competitor. So if you sell mustard, you don't want to be next to the other company that sells mustard, because then you're both trying to vie for the same customers. Try to find high traffic areas. Corners are great because you have an extra side of view. And then stay away from odors, in particular food. If somebody has a booth that has like perfumes or soaps that have real scents to them, try and stay away from that. And if you're in an inside event, try to be in a well-lit area. And if you can't probably going to want to take lights with you anyways. Outside, I try to avoid being in the direct sunlight if you can. And when you go to an event, make sure that you arrive early. You know, clean your area, even if it's not your trash. You want to give the best impression possible to your customers, and organize your display, because, you know, once an event opens, then there isn't time to catch up. So if you have to, you know, put things, we used to have these really nice handmade gift boxes, and we'd have to put our sauces in the gift boxes, and you know, we had certain areas that we wanted to put on our display, and it took a little bit of time to set up. But once a show opens and people come in the doors, they don't care if you're still trying to set up and get your samples out and things like that. They start grabbing items and they want to know how much this cost, and you feel like you can never catch up. So just a little word of advice: get there early and be prepared. All right. So once a show has begun, you know, you're on. This is your time to sell. And that's your number one job. It's the reason why you're there. So, you know, be engaging with your audience, know your product, be friendly, be excited, stay off your phone. I know that Facebook and all of those have algorithms that make you think, I've got to pick this up and look at it now. But, you know, unless you're posting about the show for your business, put that away. You're going to need to educate your customers. People want to know about your product, why you started your business, and what you do. Like I said, we made gluten-free product back in the 90s when nobody knew about gluten. So we had to educate our customers and let them know that it wasn't salt-free and sugar-free and things that tasted terrible. We actually had really good tasting products made with Maine ingredients and organic, and, you know, so those are things that help to sell your product as well. And then if you have like recipe cards and brochures, make sure that you have them prepared for, you know, to give to your customers. If you have a list of other places that sell your products, have that available. QR codes have become really prominent now. We even saw during the Super Bowl, the bouncing QR code, right? Everybody can scan it with their phone now. And you can even have it linked to, you know, if you have a YouTube channel or your website, an area with a lot more information about you. People like that. So, you know, if that's something that you're doing with your product, make sure that's prominent on it. Things that I avoid are the giveaway items like pens, magnets, keychains, things like that. There isn't, as far as I know, any proven rate of return on those items. So you invest in those things, but lots of times people just throw them in their bag and they don't really mean anything. Instead, if you're going to spend money on extras, spend them on like a nice hang tag for your product, something like that, that reinforces what you're selling instead of spending on these extra items. And then something that we learned really early on with customers is, especially during the larger shows, they were walking around and they'd come and they'd really like your product. And they'd be like, I'll be back and purchase this later. Well, we would sell the product to them and offer to hold it for them. So sometimes I'd say to people, well, you know, you like that pretty gift basket. And like I said, my former business partner would paint on these really nice hand paint. So they weren't all the same. They were similar, but they weren't all the same. So somebody would pick one out. I say, well, you know, it may not be available, but if you purchase it now, I'll hold it for you so you don't have to carry it throughout the show. I never offered to hold something for somebody without them paying for it, because you don't want to lose the sale. So I would say about 90% of the time, somebody was really interested, they would buy it then and there. And the 10% of the time when people said they would come back, I can tell you there was probably only a handful of times I actually had people come back that said they were going to come back. Most of the time they get busy, they go off somewhere else, see a different product, and they never get back to you. So make the sale. And then the other thing is, if you can avoid leaving your booth unattended, do that. If you have a friend or family member, somebody that knows your product, that's kind of enthusiastic about it, they're willing to help you out for a couple hours here and there during an event, ask them if they'll come and help you. Like I said, I had a business partner, so it was great. You know, we could always swap off. Don't put kids, I say kids, I mean, some kids are very knowledgeable and they can do a great job, but don't put somebody in there just as a placeholder if they don't know your business to try and make a sale, because that could look worse. That's where you put up that "I'll be back in 20 minutes" sign. Wholesaling and networking. So these are also great events. We would get a lot of wholesale accounts from doing festivals and farmers markets, but you need to make sure that you're already prepared to be wholesaling. You know, if it's something you're going to do, have your price list ready. Know your capacity. We used to have small samples of our products available in case we did have somebody who was interested in doing, you know, in carrying our product in their gift store or the natural food store. So, and be selective. Best example of that is we sold to a lot of gift stores throughout Maine and New England. And I remember in particular, I had sold quite a few cases of our sauces to this gift store. And when we were driving up, I had never been there before. We were driving up and we stopped. And I saw, excuse me, our product, our wild strawberry dressing, and it was displayed in a window. Well, we didn't use chemical preservatives, so we just preserved with like lemon juice and things like that. And which it was a beautiful looking dressing, but after it sat in a window, it was this ugly orange color. Well, that reflected poorly on me and my business. So you want to be selective. You know, if you know your product and you have something like that, you want to make sure that they're going to display it in an area that's appropriate for your item. And then, you know, be prepared to write an order then and there if you know your capacity, and ask for the sale, get a deposit, you know, get that moving. If that's part of your business model, be ready to do that. And then when you're at shows, I always like to, you know, make connections with other vendors. You can help each other out. You know, somebody watches your booth if you don't have somebody else to do it, and you can watch their booth. But the other thing is that you can learn about shows that they have attended that might be something of interest to you. And, you know, you'll be able to keep those relationships going beyond that one show. The last thing is something my mom taught me. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. So if your competitor's in the show and somebody asks about your competitor's product, you know, just try and be generous about it. But don't talk down about somebody else's product. It reflects poorly on you as a business person. So it's something that I've always tried to avoid. And excuse me, these are just some signs that I love, you know, of upcoming markets and events throughout Maine. And excuse me, I just popped that little slide in just because I thought it was pretty. So follow up. And this is really important. When you're at the show, yep, it could be a one-time event. You could be coming back year after year, but you really want to try and collect people's mailing addresses and have people sign up, you know, on your email list. And then if you have time and you have customers that are, you know, really interested or potential wholesale clients, make some notes. And then after the show, send a follow-up email, personalize it, you know, if you possibly can, if you've made a real connection with somebody, and then, you know, inform your customers of upcoming events. I just put this little thing in here about, you know, nice to have met you at this event. This is where we're going to be next. And then if you have new products coming or specials, you can put that in the email as well. And the easiest customer to have, to sell your product to is the one that you already have. So you really, part of doing this is not just a one-time sale, but hopefully gaining customers for the long term. And events, well, there's a bunch of clickable links here of where you can find, whether you're looking for craft shows or fairs, or the farmers markets. Maine Tourism has a listing of like everything. And then there's the Made in Maine event. So if you are part of Made in Maine, they have their own events as well. And they're a good organization. People love things that are made in Maine. We're definitely associated with quality. And that Made in Maine tag has been around for at least 30 years that I know of. And so I'm not trying to push in particular theirs, but it's something that people do look at. And I love Maine because we have so many events happening, and people are really, they want to get out there, they want to participate, and they've been waiting a couple of years to be able to go back to that fair or festival that they love to attend, and they bring family from all over the US. So, excuse me. And I just put this in here with contact information. Kelsey said that she would also have that for you. This is myself and a few of my co-advisors here. And this was at the New England Made Show, which is, for people who are going to wholesale, that's a whole other level as well. But that's it. So if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to answer them for you.
Awesome. Well done. I was laughing. You answered most of the questions that came in eventually already. So that was great. But if anyone has any additional questions, plug those in the chat now. So a couple things came up. People were asking where are good places to find out about festivals. It sounds like there are some festival scams going around where you register for an event that is non-existent. And so there was a link shared. It looks like that list, you have to pay to get that list of Maine events. So just warning you. And so it seems like Chris provided quite a number of options for looking for events. So those links will be clickable in the slides that I send out later today. So you'll be able to access those.
The other thing I was going to say, Kelsey, not to interrupt, but if it is a, you think it's a scam event, then I would find out about the event directly, go to the producer or organizer and not a third-party website who says, oh, I can get you into this show or that show. As we know, there's opportunists everywhere. And unfortunately, that's happening in this, in what you think is probably one of the most wholesome things, right? Fairs and farmers markets. So yeah, definitely reach right out directly to the event coordinator themselves.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about befriending other vendors, and a couple people mentioned that in the chat. So definitely making friends with other vendors, figuring out what fairs are good for that, maybe that product or that industry. That's a great way to keep going. We did have one, you used the term hang tag. Did you mean like product tag? Like just make a nice contact information tag instead of a pen with your name on it, essentially?
Yeah, exactly. So if if you're going to, like I said, if you're going to invest in something a little bit extra to give your customer, really a nicely made tag on your product, something unique about your product. And I'm going to digress a little bit because when I started, my business was called Competition Foods. It actually started out as Eileen's Gluten Free, but like I said, nobody knew what gluten was or why you couldn't eat it. My sister had celiac, has it still. So we were the first business in the state of Maine that had a wheat-free symbol on our product. I actually helped other, like Ray's Mustard, Mother's Mountain Mustard, and some other food processors in the state at the time understand what the wheat-free was and actually had to change the recipe to do that too, so they could be gluten-free. But anyways, when I was starting out, so was Stonewall Kitchens. And Stonewall then, you know how they have the little seal on their jar now? They actually literally used to take candles and melt the wax and do this seal, which was so neat because people are very visual, right? So it brings your product up a little higher level. So again, if you're going to invest in something like that, you know, make it something that's worthwhile, you know, that speaks to your product.
Yeah, I can vouch for all of her good gluten-free cooking. She's fed me already. So we did have a question asking, what's the typical cost associated with a radio ad space?
Sure. So thing about advertising, it really depends, right? If it's a sponsored, you can get ads as little as $15 for like a 15-second spot. Okay. Because radio, they have a lot of, you know, time that they can fill. And if they're sponsoring an event, they'll get you a package deal for it. But if you're talking about just buying it on your own, I wouldn't do it if it's related, unless the radio station is sponsoring the event you're going to do. You know, but if you're talking about buying radio advertising for your business directly, that's a whole other webinar that we're going to do later on in a couple months, because my sister does sell media advertising, and we'll do a webinar about that in a couple months.
I love the segues. Yeah, so we were discussing that this morning. I hope that you'll all join us for that. I did also want to make a plug for, and I'll have to look up the actual date, but I believe at the beginning of May, we are doing a changes to the 1099 form. So if you are selling more than $600 worth, yes, so it's May 5th at 1 p.m. If you sell more than $600 worth of items, you have to fill out a 1099 form for tax purposes. And there are changes coming to that through PayPal and Square and Venmo and all of those third-party paying sites. So if you use like a Square strip to run cards, I don't know the answer to the in profits or gross sales. I think it's in gross sales, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gross sales. So
yeah,
yeah, absolutely. So the state is really cracking down on 1099, you know, contractors. I was going to answer Sue Callahan's question. So you can register with the state of Maine to get your Maine state sales tax ID, so that you can, if your product is taxable, you know, if you're selling, like, I think sauces are still not taxable. Some food products are now that didn't used to be. But if you're selling a taxable item, you definitely want to make sure that you register and that you collect the sales tax and then turn it over to the state. So if you are a client, Sue, we can email that to you, or if you want to provide your email address, I can email you a link to be able to fill out the form. It's really easy and it's free. Because the state wants you to give money, so they'll let you register at no cost for that.
Of course they will. So yeah, so I also just plugged the link to that other webinar in the chat. So if any of you want to sign up for that, it continues with this ongoing conversation. I don't see any other questions right now, but feel free to plug them in. I was laughing. I can actually reach my market tote bag from here, which is filled with, and I haven't set up at First Friday in 2 years, and this is all here. So I have my bags, my products, I have signage that I actually put into like frames, and then my stand is like a pegboard that opens up like a V, and so I can rearrange the pegs as needed to hang all my fiber arts. So yeah, I have like a smaller pouch inside, and this has well, it's already open. That's not good. It has my business cards. It has change. So there's actually like cash in here from 2 years ago still. I have my pegs. I have all the little things that I might lose. So yeah, tote bags. all the way. Otherwise, I don't see any other questions. So, I mean, we'll stick around. We have 10-ish more minutes left of our time together, but thank you all for joining. We hope that this was helpful. If you have any additional questions, you can respond to any email you have ever gotten from me, and it'll end up in the same place. So I can certainly get you in contact with Chris. Chris's contact information will also be in my follow-up email, as well as a link just to sign up for advising. So if you're not already set up with an advisor, like I said, filling out that request for advising on our website is actually the fastest way to get connected with somebody. And there are a series of questions, but that's just to figure out where your location is and get you into our system. We're getting lots of thank yous. Do you have any specific tips for artists?
Sure. I was going to say that. It's so funny. I can see things pop up. All right.
Yeah, now they're coming in. I love it. Yeah, now we're getting questions. This is great. So if you have to run, we understand. We'll stick around and answer any questions. So
Susanna, if you feel like it, you can unmute yourself. Are you asking like what shows would be good to sell at, or?
Well, hi. Hello,
Hi.
everybody. So I'm a visual artist. I do mostly portraits, figurative work, but I paint in a realistic style. But I'm also getting into illustration and merch. So I know about getting a Maine state resale license if I'm selling to people off my website in Maine, or if I go to festivals. And there actually are some festivals that are requiring that I have insurance and a reseller's license. But is there anything just in general that I should be asking that I didn't think to ask about selling art in Maine or selling art at festivals? I know there are a lot of juried shows, and I really enjoyed your point about vetting who the audience is of particular festivals and shows.
Sure. And I'm glad you actually, and I meant to bring up insurance. I totally skipped it. You're right. A lot of, the bigger fairs and festivals do require that you have insurance, liability insurance, or business insurance to cover you. So thank you for bringing up that point. As far as there are a lot of really good shows in Maine that you can sell your art at. And I know I referenced the Yarmouth Clam Festival, but I've actually bought a lot of art from the Clam Festival, and they have a really good juried area there. And I'm sure and I see people popping things in the chat, which is wonderful. Absolutely. Please share your own experience of places that you've participated in.
Yeah, it looks like a couple people are saying good places to go for art. There was a question about First Friday. So just from my personal experience, I just show up, but you can officially sign up for First Friday. This is Portland specific. So I know there are quite a few townships that are now doing this, which is fantastic. And it's not always the same. Sometimes it's the third Friday, like each town is a little bit different. But if you're not familiar, it's usually a dedicated night, afternoon, evening-ish of the month that vendors set up all across the sidewalks, and oftentimes stores are open a little bit later. And so Portland's First Friday, which is the only one I've ever participated in, has like an official program that you can sign up to be a part of. I do not believe that there's a fee, but there is you have to be proactive about it. And then that gets you onto like a list. So they publish that on their website and the social media platform. So like Chris was saying, if you can get into that product list, then everyone knows that you're going to be there at the event. Mine is more of like a public education thing. And so I would just show up on the Fridays that I felt up to it. And I always brought a stool. So I was glad to hear Chris say the director chairs, because I don't think I brought a chair the first time, and I struggled. So I always brought a chair. So I wanted to also make sure that I said that. But otherwise, I just kind of came and went as I wanted. Yep, there are bands and singers usually. I saw someone from the Congress Square Park was here earlier. I'm not sure if they're still here. So that part of Portland is really like full, and so it'll be interesting to see how the construction affects that this summer. But I have always had a really positive experience, and I also will just add on to what Chris was saying earlier. I had a friend who was also setting up, and so we used to go and set up next to each other so that we could kind of like get a good space, whoever got there first, but also if someone needed to go get a snack or run to the restroom, we knew enough about each other's product that we could kill some time and explain that somebody would be back shortly. So we kind of tag teamed that. But that was just a convenient friendship, really. So it sounds like
we also did have a question in the chat about bags and the charge that the state has. I believe everybody that sells product does have to charge for bags now. So, you know, I think you want to err on the side of caution and, you know, just let people know that you have to charge for the bag. But I would check, because the event coordinator will probably know for sure if that pertains. So
that's helpful, because I think I put the wrong information in the chat about that, because I collect all of my paper bags and then I just put people's product in them. So I'm recycling bags technically, so I was not charging for them, but I hadn't thought about that. But is it just plastic or is it paper? So someone is, I think.
I think you actually have to charge for paper now too.
Wow.
So I think you have to charge per bag, but it also could be if, you know, certain level of business. Like I know if you go to Hannaford's or Shaw's, and even if you get a paper bag, they have to charge you for that bag. Even smaller, I was at Sherman's Books the other day and I bought some items and they're like, do you want a bag? And I was like, nope, I'm all set, because they have to charge, Rennie's has to charge for a paper bag. So I think it's pretty much across the board in the state now. You do have to charge for somebody, which, you know, is great. I love people that show up, and I see them, people like Kelsey will show up to an event and they'll already have a tote bag or a backpack or something. I always go to, you know, like the Freiburg Fair and things like that with a backpack, because I know I'm going to buy some stuff and I want to be able to carry it. But yeah, I think you do have to charge for the bag.
So this is Lisa. I have been into some stores that are not charging, but they're the smaller stores. And I just saw Stacy put in something that she got from .gov that said who needed to actually charge.
Yeah,
okay, great.
That's great, Stacy. Thank you for adding that in.
Yeah, thanks.
So it kind of reads like setting up at a fair, you probably wouldn't need to, but it's good to be proactive about this. And it's also just, you know, we're just doing our best to keep the earth spinning. So every bit we can do. This is great. I saw someone else mention, so like the Portland farmers market, if you're not selling food items, you are allowed to just set up without signing up for anything. And the friend that I partner with often set up at that one, but it's a little too early for me, so I usually pass on that one. This is great. So yeah, people are saying they use reusable bags. That website looks like it has all the specifics that you would need. This is great. You learn something new every day, right? I feel like I get something from each of these webinars. I didn't anticipate, sorry about that. I didn't anticipate learning about bag taxes today, but it's always something new with the SBDC. So thank you all so much for joining. Like I said, we're here if you have any other questions. Portland's farmers market in the downtown. You know what? So I'm not sure, because I'm trying to think back. So like the Wednesday Portland farmers market used to be in Monument Square, and the farmers were always like in the circle that was created, but then there were extra vendors that were like kind of on the other side, and those were not food items. So I wonder if those were just,
Can I say something?
yeah, go for it.
So I went to the Deering Farmers Market last year, quite a few Saturdays, and they have reset up the artists to be almost across from one of the roads. And it's a great time if you're experimenting with fairs. That's where I'm actually and experimenting with your setup, because you can show up late and there's no rush, or you can show up early and figure out how to manage the heat, the sunlight, things you didn't think about, and there's no cost to it. So if you're just starting out like I was last year in Maine about all the fairs, I learned a lot about how to manage the heat, how to manage the changing weather, how to manage the wireless. It's a great experiment, and we support each other. So if you have to make a run over to another area for whatever reason, we're all usually friendly artists down there supporting each other.
Yeah,
And there is a lot of foot traffic.
Yeah, that's great, Stacey. Yeah, events like that where it's either no cost or low cost, that's a wonderful way, to get yourself out there in front of people. I'm glad that you mentioned the Wi-Fi. I didn't even bring that up, but that's another thing. You want to make sure that the event has good Wi-Fi, especially now where so many people are cashless society, and you have to take those virtual payments or those credit cards. And I know for years, Freiburg Fair was terrible for wireless, setup. And then sometimes there are merchants that provide you can capture all the information. And then when you get back to, a place where there is Wi-Fi, you can, upload your sales for the day. So you don't necessarily need that connection. But it is a good idea.
Yeah.
So I see somebody says how many bars are needed to process a sale. It really depends on the platform that you're using. So I know that I had Cake was a platform that I used, and they required a high level to be able to process theirs. You can also create a hotspot with your phone too. Depends on the phone that you have too.
Yeah, that is a good thing to test ahead of time. And then Stacey mentioned, Stacey's doing a great job today all around.
Yeah.
So thank you, Stacey. She mentioned if you don't have a square, so like a square, it's probably in my
like a square reader.
Let's see, is it in here? It is. It's even in the foam. I even protect it still in here. So this just plugs into my phone, and it has the credit card slider. This is from before the chips existed. So I know that they did change their system, but this still works for me. So I have to swipe cards. Just fun fact, you charge it by swiping a card. So the first time you use it, it's like it doesn't work, but you're turning it on, which you have to like play it cool with the customer in front of you. But it's free. And it does take a while to get. So Stacey said, like, order it now if you want one. I think it's just, don't quote me actually on this, but I assume it's just square.com or something along those lines. And I think there was like a slight validation, or like, I had to confirm who I was with my address or something, but it was very easy. Square.com. Yeah, I was right. Look at that. We could call it a win. So that's a very easy, free way for you to access those payments. And I don't feel like I ever really had an issue with processing a payment while out without Wi-Fi, but I was in the middle of an urban area. So keep that in mind. Oh, and then April saying she just ordered a Square, but had to and make sure it's compatible with your phone. That's true. I have an iPhone. Yeah. So if you have a Samsung on, make sure you get the right one. Awesome. Well, we are about out of time. Thank you all so much. Like I said, if you have any other questions, just shoot us an email and we can get you in touch with the right person. But we wish you so much luck and so many sales. and patience and everything else that comes along with hosting a booth. So
And enjoy, when you're out there, really, I always got energy from meeting my customers. So just enjoy when you're doing it and have fun and make lots of sales this year. There's going to be a ton of people coming to the state. So we got to make hay while the sun shines, right?
yes, we do.
Thank you everyone for attending.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon.